So today we speak to Verity Poulston, who left in 2016. I think that's right. I'm hoping that's right. Thank you for agreeing to come on. And I know certainly that these have proved to be really interesting interviews for the students to listen to. So can you tell us a little bit about what you did, sort of following finishing school, and kind of what the course entailed, and tell us a little bit about that and how you got into that?
Yeah, so I did a lot of music in sixth form at Farlingaye, and especially with the big band. That was one of my favourite things to do. I sang a lot with the big band. So I then went on to the Guildhall School of Music and Drama, and I studied jazz singing, which is very specific, I know. But yeah, it was really great, and I've just graduated from that this summer, and I learned loads. It seems like a very niche kind of thing, but the course taught us so much about just music in general, which was really nice. It was definitely performance, very performance based, which is exactly what I wanted to do. But also lots of theory and lots of history of jazz and so many other kinds of music. It really it's a bit of an umbrella term, jazz really. So we did cover classical and kind of African music and pop and funk and soul, kind of so much, so many different styles, which was really great. And so I've just finished that, and then now I am, because of the pandemic, there was no gigs or anything when I finished uh, that course. So I went on to study a master's in music business. So now I've done the performance side of things, and now I'm learning about the business side and the kind of reality of the industry, especially as a singer. So that's where I am at the moment.
Okay, which is sounds fascinating. Just to sort of go back to the business thing, would that lead you into kind of having a greater understanding? You'd like to sort of freelance and work in that way? Would it be that kind of thing you're looking at now?
Yeah, definitely. Although I studied jazz, I kind of always wanted to do more pop stuff and be in the pop industry. And this business course is very much about the commercial music industry, and it's really great because it's taught me so many of the ins and outs of record labels and music publishing and getting your music onto TV shows or whatever. And it's really interesting because there's so many different things within it, and um, it's very specialized, and it's really hard to get into unless you have that experience and you know about it. So I thought that would be a really handy thing to be able to do as well as the performing, so that I can kind of run my own career all myself.
Yeah, and I suppose that's the kind of facet of the business that is fraught with the unknown. You know, your ability is one thing, and the ability to do it and sing in a variety of genres and styles, of course, is you can do that. I suppose it is very difficult, and I know, having spoken to some of the others that work in the industry, they've also said it's about who you know, but it's also about being a nice person, so that it's you've got to have that and avoiding the pitfalls.
Yeah, it's definitely, the your technical ability is only part of it, and it is all who you know. They're completely right. And so this course is really helped with that. It's knowing the managers and the people to collaborate with. It's all about collaboration, really, I think, and just experience as
Mm.
opposed to just getting loads of qualifications. I think being able to say I've worked with this manager on this project, or I you know worked with this person in the studio. It's just so important to be able to say those things.
Yeah, yeah, and I suppose in some respects it's kind of a small world, especially if you're kind of in the singing world. Although it feels, I know certainly speaking to Natty and sort of talking to her about the cello, it feels a little bit as it's a smaller world that you're walking into. I mean, I know that Adam was doing a bass line, so he's done country and western bass line. He says, I now consider myself to be a country bassist. I didn't even know there was such a thing in such a niche market. So going back to the jazz, who inspired you? Which singers inspired you? And who do you kind of look to?
Well, I've always loved the classic jazz singers like Ella Fitzgerald and Frank Sinatra. They're, the ones that you kind of hear at Christmas, for example. All the Christmas big band music that you hear, it's always those kinds of people. Um, and then when I kind of started singing with the big band in Farlingaye, and lovely Mr. Phillips, he really introduced me to he kind of really took me under his wing and showed me so many so many songs, jazz songs, and so many other jazz singers, more contemporary ones, and it was really really great and kind of expanded my knowledge. And yeah, so that's the kind of thing that I always like to do with jazz. It's always been big band, really. It's been my
Amazing.
favorite.
And it's and he, you know, he would be delighted to hear that, as would Sarah. How would you say that going into something specific like the jazz singing, what are the skills that are needed as a vocalist, in terms of being a jazz singer, that you possibly don't need in other genres? So say, for example, what would you need in jazz that you possibly wouldn't need in pop?
Well, one of the biggest parts of our course was improvisation. Wow, I can't say that word anymore. I've said it so many times. Improv, there we go, scatting.
Yeah.
That's super specific to the jazz genre. And we did a lot of that because a nice thing about the course was that they treated all the singers kind of in the same way as instrumentalists. So we would all, if we were in a band in a class, we would all go around and take a solo, an improvised solo, and we wouldn't be separate, which was really nice. So it's learning how to use your voice as an instrument as opposed to just singing some words, which I think you don't get that as much in other genres. Also, the kind of in terms of the style, pop tends to be much more loud and belty and sometimes nasal, and then jazz, it's nicer to be lower and have a more rounded tone. I think, if I'm getting really nitpicky about it, yeah, but mainly improv and the kind of changing the melody around and embellishing. We focused on that a lot in the course.
It's really interesting. I remember being in Canada and my aunt taking me to a concert where Sarah Vaughan was singing. And I must have only been about, yeah, I know. And I was about 15 and I just stood there. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Like as a 15-year-old, there might have been a little bit teenagey, but I was absolutely blown away. And I was blown away by the range and by the movement, from one note to another. And I just was so taken.
Yeah, she is. Sarah Vaughan is one of the best scatters, definitely. She can go from a really, really low note right up to like ridiculously high note, and she can really make her voice sound like a trumpet, for example, and kind of sing those lines that you wouldn't have thought would be possible to be able to sing. Yeah, she's amazing.
And the range, like you say, the range, she'd go really, really low and you'd be like just listening, thinking, and the intonation was absolutely bang on. You know where you're going. It's, like on a flute, I know if I'm going to pitch a note, I can hear it and I know where I'm going, but singing is, I was just amazed. Just such a natural, talent. Absolutely amazing. So, did you have to rehearse a lot? How did you protect your voice when you were at university? Was it like a lot of rehearsal practice during the day?
Yeah, well, luckily it was a 4-year course, and for the first 2 years, they gave us, we had a lot of one-to-one lessons, which was really nice. And we had to have half of them with a classical technical teacher for the first 2 years, so that we really, really got those super important foundations for just vocal technique, because it's so important. It's like we would had to treat our voices as if we were an athlete. Basically, you have to really take care of them, and you could, if you don't use your voice properly, then your career is really shortened. If you get vocal health issues, it's just the worst. So that was really, really good. We made sure to get lots of technical work in, and yeah, all of our classes were practical, basically. So it's a lot of singing in the day, or a lot of playing for everyone, really. So yeah, we would have to always make sure that we were really, really taking care of our voices, but also doing lots of practice to kind of, well, like an athlete would, you build up your stamina and you build up your endurance with the vocal muscle so you don't get fatigued. So we did a lot of that, and just, yeah, a lot of singing all day, every day, which was great. Loved it.
That sounds incredible. That sounds incredible, and I suspect that's right. I know other instrumentalists have talked about having to kind of fine tune muscles and think about strains and stresses. Yeah, absolutely. So, what do you think the impact of having extracurricular music was on your school life? Because I know that you're involved in shows and things like that. So, what benefit did it have to you? What did it give you?
Well, it was by far my favorite part of school. I loved everything. I think I did a musical extracurricular every day of the
Mm,
week. I just loved it. It was so great, and I luckily play lots of instruments, so I got to do loads of different things, do lots of
mm,
different musical things, and work on different styles. With the different choirs did different things, and then the big band, of course, and it was really really great, and it gave me the discipline as well. You definitely need a lot of um, you need practice, not just with your technique, but with playing with other people and working with lots of other people. If especially if they're different levels and
wow.
playing different styles, it's really really good to just have that experience with working with lots of different people in lots of different places. And yeah, it was just so fun, and it was a really really great part of of the school experience, and I got to do lots, which was really nice.
It's really lovely to hear. I was saying this to Sarah and Rob. It's so lovely to hear because we put it in place for that reason, but you're never sure. It's like I was saying to somebody the other day, I would sit at the back in Symphonia and play the flute. I'd play flute two, I'd play flute one, whatever. It just didn't matter. It was just lovely to be part of it. But I do know that we'd have to manage our time. And I know that for a lot of you, it was a case of managing your time and working out what you had, especially when you were in sixth form, you had A levels and things like this, knowing you loved it, but trying to keep a balance of time and time management, which is, I suppose, suitable for adulthood, isn't it? Suitable for adulthood.
Yeah, yeah. But
So,
I
yeah,
think it was
cool.
I think it was so good that there was so much and so many different, you had so many different opportunities, and I think, you know, it's really great to have those there if you want to do them. If you want to put the time in, then you could. I think
Yeah,
it's always
yeah.
better to have the opportunities and be able to do it than, wanting more. I think so. That's why I did so much, because I just wanted to do as much as I could because they were all really great.
And you immersed yourself in it. I mean, you've always immersed yourself in it fully, and you were always very single-minded in, what you wanted to do, what you wanted to get involved in, the things you enjoyed, but you always did it with, real professionalism, which is amazing. I suppose the question now that follows is why music? Why music? Why is it something you've chosen to go into as a career?
Oh goodness,
I
that's
know it's a loaded question. Everyone
well,
goes,
that's a
what?
deep question. um,
What's it?
I
What's
mean,
okay? So maybe break down. What does music offer you that another career wouldn't?
I think. Well, I mean, I haven't. I can't remember a time when I didn't want to do music. Really, I think it just gives me joy. I don't know. It's a really hard question to answer, so I'm probably not going to be very eloquent. But
But it's a really difficult question. If you were to ask me the same thing, I would probably say it was something I loved and I continued to do it and I don't regret a day of having done it. But
yeah,
I couldn't tell you, I don't know, it was just, other people have said it's just me, it's just something I do, it's something that I get a lot from. I mean, I always think with music, it gives you a lot back. And the reason
yeah,
it gives you a lot back is because you put so much into it. Like when you're involved in shows or anything else like this, although we're ready to, murder each other by the last night, do you know what I mean, in terms of just the stress levels before the first night, sorry. And then when it goes on, you go, oh, just got bits, because everyone invests so heavily in it. And I think
yeah,
that's really important. And I suppose the other thing is, if you're happy and you enjoy doing it, as well as being good at it, I mean, that kind of comes as a prerequisite with it. It's mixing with other people, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. I think yeah, you're exactly right. There's nothing like that feeling when you work on a project for weeks or months or whatever, and then when you finally get to perform it, and when people enjoy it, it's part of it's. A lot of my teachers have always said you need to think of a performance as a gift that you're giving the
Mm.
audience. It's not about you; it's about giving them something. And when you get that response from the audience, there's just nothing like it, and that's why um, the lack of audience in lockdown has been so hard for so many musicians, I think,
So
because
hard.
it's all about, I think it's, you know, it's all about giving something, and it's just a feeling like no other. You know, you can't, even if you get an A on a test, it's like, it's just not the same like euphoric feeling as you get from a performance,
Mm.
and the collaboration when it's with, you know, when you perform with a band and you're all working towards something. It's just, it's a very special, irreplaceable kind of feeling, I think.
Yeah, I would completely agree. And I think it's that, as you say, it's that interaction that you can only get in that moment. You know, that it's like, you know, we do shows or we do bits and pieces, and at the end of it you go, oh, and as you say, it's so lovely to showcase gifts. It's not, and I think the difficulties, and so I think probably with teaching as well, if you consider that you're the most important thing, that's where you fall really short. Whereas if you consider what's in front of you, and you're sharing something and you're giving it over and you're trying to kind of nurture something else, whether it's a show, whether it's a performance, whatever it is, it's done with integrity, and it's got to be the right thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
Got to be.
definitely.
Got
Definitely.
to be. Okay, so finally, what next? What next? What do you want to do? Where do you hope this will take you?
Goodness, well, that again is difficult to answer, especially in the midst of a lockdown and a
Yeah.
pandemic. It's, you know, cut a lot of people's vision short, I think. But well, once I've finished my course finishes in August, music business, and I think it's gonna just be about trying to restart the music industry, like kickstart it as much as possible. I think I definitely want to start looking for more freelance gigs. I'm doing working on an album at the moment. Um, so I've been luckily been recording in lockdown. That's one thing that
Mhm.
I have been able to do. I've got a little home studio thing and been recording. So getting that, and luckily my course has been helping me with the marketing of that kind of thing, which is a very important part of the music industry, sadly, or the pop business
Mm.
especially.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I think, you know, it's just going to be about trying to get out there and perform as much as possible, because I know there are so many, you know, everyone who I went to the Guildhall with is just desperate to get out and play, you know, and perform with each other again. And so I think, yes, it's been a horrible last year, but I think it's going to be an amazing next couple of years, because people are just going to be so grateful to be performing again. I think there's going to be a lot of special music happening.
And I think it's absolutely right. I know that certainly during lockdown, people are working in a different way. So I've recorded
Mm.
songs in the kitchen. Now that's
Yeah.
not something I do. Like when we kicked sort of getting the playlist going, I thought, well, if I'm going to make people do it, I've got to do it myself. And I just sat down and thought, I don't think I can do this. And we're working in a different way. So I think you're right. And I do believe that when it comes, it will come back with a bang.
Yeah.
And I think that people will realise what it means. And I really hope that people stop and go, actually, maybe we took the arts for granted.
Yeah.
And maybe we now need to be thinking, you know, because I think the phrase well-being, I appreciate in many respects it's overused, but I think the actual meaning of it is possibly underused, you know, to actually give something back and make a difference. You know, we know what music does, so I think it will become really important, and I hope so. I really do.
Yeah.
Now, will you send us a couple of your pieces that you've done and recorded when they're done and when you are
Yeah.
allowed to do so?
Sure. Yes, I
We'd
will.
really like that.
I've got a couple of I've done a couple of live streams and stuff, so I could send you video if you like, or just audio, whichever one you would prefer.
I would love the video, because I think sometimes it's nice for people to be able to see you do your craft. So what I'll do is then I'll put those underneath in the playlists, so that
Yeah.
people can actually have a look at what you're doing, because it's one thing for you to talk about it, which you have done spectacularly, I must say, and it's another thing to then have you perform and actually people to be
Yeah.
able to see what you're doing and the style in which you're working, and actually the product of 4 years at university studying it, I think is
Yeah.
really
Let's
important.
hope people aren't disappointed by
I
that.
am pretty sure. I think that the reason for doing these playlists is to share with the community. It's not, you know, it's not you. I'm sure it'll be fabulous. I feel absolutely positive. But just to say to you, thank you very much for agreeing to do this, because I know that people will watch it. I know that kind of when I'm done on this, I will send it over to the sixth form and they'll be like, yes, that was brilliant. I know they will, because they've taken it kind of to
Good.
heart.
Yeah. Well, I just hope that I can, yeah, help people feel a bit more, you know, a bit more positive about going into music, because it's tough. It's a tough thing to do, but it's so rewarding. I think, you know, you really have to make your own work and you have to be really proactive. But I think that's why you get so much back. As we were saying earlier, with, you know, you put so much in and you get so much back from it.
So then, now to just dig in a little bit further, what skills do you think you need to make yourself successful in the music world?
I think, well, I think, you know, your technical performance is only one part of it. I think it's so important to be professional. Professionalism is a huge part of it. You know, just turning up on time and knowing your
Mm.
piece, you know, knowing the words or knowing the arrangement or whatever it is. I think that's a very it's something you don't realize, but it makes such a difference. I think people fixers will, if they have two people and one person is, you know, child prodigy or whatever, but turns up late and doesn't know what song they're doing, and then you have one person who's maybe not quite as skilled in their technique but will be really professional, people will always go with the professional person every time. That's one thing that I've really learned, and luckily I always really focus on that. I think it's a very easy thing to do. um, and being open to working with lots of different people and just trying lots of different kinds of music, because you never know, you know, this drummer that you work with might know a
Mm.
bass player that will do this project for you, or, you know, his brother is a trumpeter who can happen to do really high screamy notes that you need, or, you know, whatever it is. It's good to just try and meet as many and play with as many people as you can. We had a lot of jazz jams in Guildhall, especially in my first year. We would all kind of go down to the student bar and just like play.
Mm.
Someone would just be like, "Oh, can we do this tune?" And then we would be like, "Okay, any drummers here?" And then someone would be like, "Yeah, okay." And then we would all just play together and see what happened. And it was really, you know, that's a really nice part of it. It's not just about the paid professional work. It's
Mm.
about just performing with lots of other people. Sorry,
That
I went
sounds
on
like,
a bit there,
no,
but
no, not at all. I was listening, and I think you know what you're talking about is you're going back to this business of collaborations, successful collaborations, and even collaborations that you didn't think would necessarily work. You can't know that until you've gone through that process, and that
yeah,
does take sort of an emotional maturity and kind of an integrity that not everyone has, I don't think.
yeah, I don't know. I think it's something that I've definitely learned a lot
Mm.
over the last 4 years. Definitely grown a lot in that way. You know, just being willing to, yeah, to sing in lots of different ways and try things. It's all about effort, I think.
Mm.
That's
Yeah, and
very,
you've got to have a good work ethic.
yeah. I definitely, one thing that I know that I have is I put 100% into everything I do, and I think that's really important, especially with music, because you've got to do the work. You've got to, you know, and that's okay. It's fun.
Mm.
It's really nice to be able to um, be at work but be really enjoying yourself at the same time. I think that's something that the arts maybe have more than a lot of
Mm.
other things.
Mm.
Um,
And
not
there's a
quite.
lot of competition, isn't there? There's a lot of competition, so you do have to. And why would you not put in 100%? Because you know, yeah. And I think in the music industry there's a lot of competition for work. But you know, you've got to get on with it. You've got to do it.
Yeah, yeah. There is, yeah, it's definitely a lot of competition, but I like how that's why I kind of, I wanted to go into pop, but I thought what would be really good is to get this more academic jazz degree. I think that kind of gives you a little edge, and any
Mm.
kind of knowledge is good. You know, now I know about jazz chords and I can sing, whatever scales over fancy chords, and that's always going to be useful, and people are going to like that, I think, in the
Mm.
pop world. So, no knowledge is wasted, as the cliche
No, no.
goes. Yeah, and it's met so many amazing other jazz musicians, and maybe a lot of people don't necessarily can't hear the difference maybe between someone who didn't go to music college and someone who did. But the thing is that you feel the difference, and you are much more confident with your own craft, and that's what's important, really.
Mm. And I suppose also you have control over your voice. You have
Yeah.
that control to know exactly what's going, and you've got the science behind it. And I always think, you know, that the great thing about university or college or going on to that kind of thing is you've got time to play. You've got the space to play without that pressure of needing to earn the money.
Definitely. My teacher said these 4 years should be the most you've ever practiced and the most you will ever practice.
Definitely.
That's, you know, you're able to do whatever it is for 5 hours a day. Some people, it's like some classical musicians were in the practice rooms literally 8 hours a day. But as a singer, you can't really physically do that. But, you know, to be able to, being around all these musicians all the time as well, just being able to have really in-depth conversations about whether it's like a tiny little one bar in a thing and you have a really long conversation. It's just, you know, it's so nice to have that level of knowledge about something, even if it's about a really niche specific thing. I think it's been really nice to learn so much about that, and it is applicable to, you know, other music as well. So I think it's always worth studying music.
Definitely. Well, you've certainly told me lots of things I didn't know, and as you know, I've been in the industry for some years. But I have to say I've really enjoyed it, and thank you very much for sharing your experience journey.
Thank you for asking me. It's been really
Pleasure, absolute pleasure. I'm just waiting for someone to turn around and say, no, I'm far too busy. I'm waiting for someone to go, no, look, I'm sorry, it's just not my thing. Everybody's been amazing, like really, really amazing, humbling, and it's so nice. And it's so nice to see that even when you were kind of, you know, younger, I say younger, that sounds rude, but you know, when you were at school, there's facets of your personality that were very clear when you're at school that are now shining through now, things that were always going to make you successful, you know, that single-mindedness, that passion for it, that kind of professional judgment, wanting to have a polished performance, and here it all is, and it's coming to fruition. So Verity, thank you very much indeed, and much appreciated. We wish you every success and happiness, and good luck.